braking traces didn't just raise eyebrows in Maranello, they shattered assumptions. Sector 2 in Shanghai, a medium-speed sequence where Charles Leclerc had long ruled unchallenged, suddenly became contested territory. For years, Charles was Ferrari's late-braking benchmark, the one whose precision under pressure carved tenths out of corners and secured supremacy over every teammate. Vettel, Sainz, all of them. Then came Lewis Hamilton. In the post-session briefing, Leclerc watched the data from his own lap, aggressive, confident, nearly perfect. But when Hamilton's telemetry was overlaid, everything stopped. The brakes were released later, yet smoother. No instability, no twitch, just control that didn't fit the model. One engineer leaned in and whispered what no one dared say aloud. How is he rotating that deep into the zone? It wasn't just adaptation. It was Hamilton rewriting the code of a car not built for him, finding a rhythm the simulator couldn't predict and making it look effortless. And for Leclerc, who built his identity on brake mastery, this wasn't a racing detail, it was a direct, silent challenge. The man they assumed would follow had led, not just on one lap, not just in one race, but across multiple Grand Prix weekends. Shanghai confirmed it. The numbers weren't lying. Hamilton was braking 3 to 5 meters later than predicted, and not only making the apex, but doing so without a single lockup, without sacrificing exit speed. Inside a team where simulations are scripture, Hamilton had just committed heresy and made it look like instinct. Inside Ferrari's simulator rooms, this wasn't supposed to be possible. The models are gospel, braking points, tyre loads, deceleration curves, meticulously calibrated around Charles Leclerc's style. And yet, Hamilton's data from Shanghai made no sense. The engineers re-ran the sim. Again and again, the system spat out the same answer. What Hamilton did shouldn't work. The apex entry speeds, the brake pressure release timing, it all defied the car's expected behaviour. But the on-track data said otherwise. When Charles's race engineer muttered, "We built this model for Charles," Lewis just broke it. It wasn't frustration. It was awe. What stunned the team most wasn't just the raw metrics, it was the consistency. Hamilton replicated the same trait in Suzuka, and again in Miami. This wasn't a one-off trick. It wasn't set-up sorcery. It was a fundamentally different approach to deceleration and rotation. Ferrari's chassis philosophy had always revolved around Charles. His early rotation cues, his sharp trail braking, his mid-corner throttle timing. But Hamilton ignored the old playbook. He drove by feeling, modulating brake migration on the fly, adjusting pedal mapping lap by lap. It was subtle. But when engineers overlaid corner entry telemetry from 3 circuits, the shift was undeniable. Hamilton wasn't just later, he was more efficient. Less pedal time, less correction, more stability. It shook the confidence of a team that had grown used to Leclerc's style as the performance baseline. Now, Hamilton had redefined that baseline, without asking for it. He didn't challenge Ferrari's methodology, he simply demonstrated a better one. What began as a technical outlier became a psychological fault line. Leclerc, long revered as the Scuderia's compass, was no longer alone at the top of the hierarchy. The engineers weren't talking, but they were watching. Brake performance graphs from Montreal told a different story. Hamilton's modulation through heavy braking zones was so refined it looked scripted. No drag, no spikes, just smooth torque transitions. And the reaction within the team was subtle, but seismic. One lead engineer who had been with Ferrari since the Schumacher era broke his silence. "I haven't seen brake control like this since Michael." It was never said publicly. It didn't need to be. Because in Ferrari, comparison to Schumacher isn't praise, it's a paradigm shift. For Leclerc, the damage wasn't just in the data, it was in the energy. In debriefs, Hamilton's comments began influencing car setups. Not replacing Leclerc's input, but echoing it. And in a culture where belief drives decisions, that echo became thunder. By Friday in Montreal, both cars trialled different brake migration profiles, one based on Leclerc's trusted map, the other on a configuration Hamilton had suggested after Imola. By FP3, the entire garage was running Hamilton's map, quietly, without debate. They just called it Map LHA. And Leclerc? He noticed. He didn't complain. But the message was clear. Hamilton's feel was becoming Ferrari's foundation, not through power plays or politics, but through precision. He wasn't stealing Leclerc's team, he was earning their belief. And in F1, belief is the true power unit. This isn't just a technical subplot, it's a title-defining shift. Ferrari entered 2025 with one goal, to finally unseat Red Bull. But 10 races in, the constructors' standings tell a different story, Ferrari trailing McLaren by 191 points. And while Leclerc secured 3 podiums early in the season, Hamilton's rise in influence is rewriting Ferrari's long-term trajectory. The brake zone battles aren't just intra-team ego duels, they're setting the tone for championship strategy. Every Friday setup choice, every delta in braking modulation now carries implications beyond Sunday finishes. If Ferrari's engineers begin designing around Hamilton's instincts, it changes not just the balance between drivers, but the type of car Ferrari brings to Monza, to Singapore, to Austin. The driver who dictates the development path often dictates the points war. And in a title fight this tight, milliseconds in braking translate to tenths per lap, and tenths win races. Leclerc knows it. His attempt to mirror Hamilton's braking entry into Turn 3 at Baku cost him 2/10 in qualifying and track position on race day. That's not just data, that's disruption. And the more Hamilton sets the rhythm, the more Ferrari's internal compass pivots away from Charles. It's not sabotage, it's evolution. The team isn't abandoning Leclerc, they're simply chasing the faster ghost in their data. And right now, that ghost wears number 44. If this feels familiar, that's because it is. F1 has seen these quiet takeovers before. Senna at McLaren, Alonso at Renault, Schumacher at Ferrari. A driver arrives, not as a disruptor, but as a recalibrator. And over time, the team doesn't just adapt to them, it becomes an extension of their thinking. Hamilton's current arc echoes Schumacher's early Ferrari days, not in dominance, but in transformation. He isn't dismantling Charles's legacy, he's reframing it, and it's happening one brake zone at a time. What makes this shift so potent is its subtlety. There's no public fallout, no headline feud, just data, unarguable, relentless data, that shows one driver pushing the limits of predictability, while the other tries to redefine his own. Leclerc thrives inside systems. He's brilliant, efficient, clinical. But Hamilton bends systems. He speaks a different dialect with the car, one Ferrari hasn't heard in decades. That's why engineers now open debriefs with, "What did Lewis feel?" That's why pedal modulation maps are being written in response to his cornering rhythm. And that's why, without ever demanding it, Hamilton is reshaping the very architecture of Ferrari's identity. Leclerc still has speed, still has fire. But inside the garage, a quiet gravitational shift is underway. And history has shown what happens when belief moves from one side of the garage to the other. It's never announced, it's just felt. Ferrari's data systems are some of the most advanced in motorsport. AI-assisted analysis, predictive models, pressure maps layered with real-time simulation inputs. But none of them predicted this. Hamilton's braking style isn't just late, it's adaptive, dynamic, human. One engineer described it as alive, not in a poetic sense, but in how it reacts to changing fuel weights, wind gusts, tyre temperature, even crowd noise. He drives with instinct the software can't decode. And that's what's shaking Maranello to its core, because Ferrari's car wasn't designed for Hamilton. But now it's evolving around him, not by intention, but by necessity. Brake balance tweaks, energy deployment strategies, torque migration patterns, they're being fine-tuned to his feel. And that feel, it's more accurate than their models. For a team built on predictability, Hamilton is introducing controlled unpredictability, a form of chaos that works. Leclerc's inputs, while elite, are structured, predictable. He tells the system what to expect. Hamilton teaches the system to listen. And Ferrari, once skeptical, is now responding. They're not just integrating his preferences, they're relying on them. It's the start of a new code, one where human instinct isn't overridden by simulation, but amplified by it. In a season of narrow margins, that's the difference between potential and performance. It didn't start with declarations or demands. It started with 3 meters of braking. Now, it's grown into something much larger. Ferrari, the team, the culture, the myth, is shifting. And the direction is clear. Hamilton hasn't just adapted to the Scuderia, he's begun to redefine it. Every braking trace, every corner entry, every quiet debrief has left fingerprints. Not just on the car, but on the team's belief system. Leclerc knows it, his engineer knows it, and so do we. Because in Formula One, respect isn't handed out, it's earned corner by corner. And when a driver doesn't just compete, but converts an entire operation to his rhythm, that's not a teammate, that's a takeover. You won't see it in headlines. You won't hear it in press conferences, but if you listen closely, you'll hear it in the brake traces. And in the silence after the session, when engineers lean back in their chairs, shake their heads, and realize that the car they built is no longer obeying the model. It's following something else, something human, something Hamilton.